Now we're going to speak to Shakira Miles, a veterinary nurse, who has probably a very interesting view on what happened. Remember the story from yesterday? A young cow. It wasn't apparently a calf because it was more than 10 months old. I'm told it was a stirk. So that's what we're calling it here. Was basically run over and hit 4 times by a police officer in a car. They were trying to control it. It was a runaway cow, we were told, and they needed to make sure that nobody was injured. Shakira, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, I must admit, I was quite surprised when I saw this story this morning that the head of the Farmers Union, the NFU, basically said that he thought the police had done the right thing. What do you think?
Well, I think with any animal welfare issues, obviously one of the most important things to do is to call the vet. A vet should have been called, and people that are actually experts in knowing how to handle animals like this, should have been called. I think that's a very basic requirement.
Yeah, I think so, because we spoke to an awful lot of people yesterday. It was a fascinating amount of interest in this story, because obviously it's not the sort of thing that happens all the time. And we spoke to quite a few people who have farming experience, who work with animals like this, and they say it's actually quite easy to distract a cow. It's actually quite easy to get a cow. It's not like a horse that's running away at high speed. It's quite easy to kind of, distract it to the point where you can lead it somewhere, or, you can probably put something, like a lasso over it or something like that. They don't normally, they're not normally charging around, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a cow on their own is going to be frightened. Obviously, they're in the dark. Their vision will be limited in this level of lighting. And supposedly this situation went on for a few hours. Yeah. So how the police were so unprepared to deal with this animal absolutely baffles me. Where were the RSPCA? Where were the vets?
Yes.
And what did they think was going to happen from this situation? I think this is important, an important opportunity to also talk about the fact that this isn't actually the first time something like this has happened. In 2021, Thames Valley Police actually killed a cow in exactly the same way.
Right.
An investigation took place from the police, and they just stated that there were some learnings to be had, and that was pretty much it.
Right.
So yeah, it's very concerning that this is a message that we're sending to the public, that this is an appropriate way to be treating animals, which obviously the majority of the public would say absolutely not.
But that is the point, isn't it? And that's why I think it's even more surprising the National Farmers Union boss has come out on the side of the police, because one of the reasons I think that they waited such a long time is because they didn't really know what to do. And I had a police officer in here yesterday, a former senior police officer, Peter Blexley, who said, this is part of the problem with the police. They take such a long time to decide what to do that the situation has already sort of got worse and kind of made the thing that could have been solved in the first place would have been solved much quicker if they just got on with it.
Yeah, and I think we have to always remember that the police are not the best trained people for these situations. And there are so many other experts that would have been able to help.
Yeah.
And eventually the cow was put into a safe situation. It's obviously gone back to the original owner. Now, I think it's always important to think about what was the actual risk to human safety. It's the same with the situation with Marshall and Millions, the 2 dogs that were killed by Metropolitan Police in London just not so long ago. And I think it's important to have these types of conversations about whether animals are really protected by law and by society itself. And I think and I hope that this will create good opportunities to talk about these things, because I personally really do not feel that animals are protected against violence like this. And why is it okay for a police officer to carry out such a violent act to an animal? If that was a lay person or a member of the public doing that to an animal, we'd be having very different conversations. And of course, we'd be having even more emotional conversations if this involved a slightly different species, such as a dog, for example.
Exactly right. And I mean, nobody's really thought about the welfare of the animal. We were told yesterday that the cow, the stirk rather, as I should probably call it, is recovering and will survive. But the owner of the animal has basically said that she's worried that it might be now infertile and won't be able to conceive.
Well, I think we all need to, again, strip this down to the fact of why was that cow there in the first place? The cow was there, and the cow has been born because people eat animals. And, animals making profit for people and for the public is what's going to be the number one goal here. Now, the likelihood is that Bo, like his brothers and sisters, will be eaten by the public. And I think it's just such a important conversation to have, is that people are connected to this animal. They feel a sense of outrage, they feel a sense of upset towards what's happened to this animal. But, you know, the reason those animals are there are because people choose to eat them. And, you know, the slaughterhouse situation will be far more violent than what's happened by the police. And I think it's a good chance to talk about why, when we see these acts of violence, we want to intervene, we want to act. And you saw the people in the video going, oh my God, that's terrible, that's completely out of order. Why are you doing that to that animal? And most people would step in when they see cruelty happening. But cruelty is legal in certain aspects, and we call it necessary or unnecessary suffering when it comes to legal terms. And, you know, there is a petition going to try and get this animal into sanctuary so that this animal can be saved, which is being put out by Animal Rising at the moment. And, you know, I think that would be such a beautiful ending for this cow to go to a sanctuary and not be used or profited from in any way. And I really do hope that is what happens.
Yes. Well, that may well be where it ends up, I suppose. But I mean, I think the thing for people's attitudes towards farming and attitudes towards the killing of animals for food is that they don't see it happening before their eyes every single 5 minutes. So when they see something like this, it's genuinely shocking. It's a bit like, you know, when you see a dog biting somebody, you kind of go, oh, blimey, they can do that. You don't really think of a dog as attacking someone, but when you see it attacking someone, you know, you don't mind having it put down.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there's a lot of people talking about this now. It's just our connection to animals. I think we're really far removed from nature. I think a lot of us just simply also don't understand animals. I think we think that we do. We all seem to think that we're experts in dog behaviour and why dogs bite. You know, there's always a lot of heated conversations around incidents like you were referring to. But I think a lot of us actually really do not have this understanding of animals and how they suffer, and, you know, how there's certain laws that protect certain species and certain laws that don't protect others. You know, lobsters being brought to life, for example. And I think the general public really do care about animals and would step in when any act of violence is happening. But we also pay people to also carry out acts of violence towards animals, and we call it legal. And I think it's just a real shame, because people are so emotional when it comes to certain species, because we've been told that they're our companions, but other animals that are reared for food, it's almost like, oh, well, they don't really suffer in the same ways as our companion animals. And I've been very, very blessed to have relationships with all kinds of different species, and I've had chickens sleep in my bed. You know, I spent a lot of time with farmed animals, with pigs,
Sounds
with
a bit
dogs,
smelly.
with cats, with primates. You know, you watch them learn and grow and have wonderful personalities. They're smart, they're intelligent, and you just know that if there was an animal like that in front of them, whether it was a cow, chicken or pig, most people would not treat them with violence. They would treat them with compassion.
No, I'm sure they
would. I really
wouldn't.
hope that this story creates that.
Yeah, no, thank you very much indeed. It's a good point to make. Shakira Miles, a veterinary nurse, talking about how she doesn't agree with the boss of the Farmers Union, the National Farmers Union, basically, who said that the police probably did the right thing. That's Hugh Broome, National Farmers Union South East Livestock Chairman. So, according to the NFU, it's okay to hit cows with cars.